Hey students, in this video I'm going to go over the part 2 of the note 7.5, which talk about multiplying and dividing rational expressions. In part 1 I went over how to multiply. In this video in part 2 I'm going to show how to divide. So in your notes you had two problems to practice with or to go over. This is one of them. Whenever we divide rational expressions is like dividing fractions. So the first thing we need to remember is that when we divide fractions, we want to keep the first fraction the way it is. Then we not want to change this division into a multiplication, or in algebra we just see it as a dot. And then this second fraction, technically we want the reciprocal, which is to flip the fraction that you have. So we're going to have x minus 3 on the numerator, and then x squared minus 4x plus 3 is the denominator for this part. This one stays the same, so we have x squared plus 3x minus 4, x squared plus 6x plus 8. So we're going to end up technically multiplying now these two. Disregard the dot being way up there. I'm just going to put it right here in the middle. So next we're going to apply the steps that we did in part 1, which were whenever we multiply, we want to first factor if possible. So here we do have a numerator and a denominator that needs to be factored. And then on this part, x plus 3 is already good to go, and this trinomial in the numerator needs to be factored. So anytime we factor trinomials, we do want to use the strategy of drawing that x, where you write a times c in the top, so -4, and then your b value in the bottom, so +3. We think about what two numbers do you multiply, what are the factors of -4, and these end up combining to give you +3. So we have 4 and 1, and 4 minus 1 gives you +3. So these two numbers that we found, we're going to write them as two binomials, x plus 4, x minus 1. And again, this is a shortcut to writing the factors right away because the a value is a 1. Next, we're going to factor this other trinomial. So a times c is 8. B value is +6. So here the factors of 8 are 4 and 2, and 4 and 2 give you 6 if you combine. +4, +2. These two numbers are the numbers we're going to use for these factors, so x plus 4, x plus 2. On this other side, again, we just have x minus 3 on the top, numerator, but in the denominator we need another x to help us find the factors. So a times c is 3, and the b value is -4. So the factors of 3 are 1 and 3, and to get -4, we need both of these to be negative so we can add a negative with another negative. These are the numbers we're going to use, x minus 1 and x minus 3. And again, all of these trinomials do have an a value of 1, which means that we immediately write down those numbers in our factors without changing anything else after that. So this is the factored form of the division that we were originally given. Now that we have the factored form, we are going to simplify. So to simplify, we now look at the factors in the numerator and factors in the denominator and reduce or dash out the numbers that, or factors that are the same. So x plus 4, x plus 4, we can dash those out. They reduce to a 1-to-1 ratio. Another one is x minus 1, x minus 1, and then another one is x minus 3 and x minus 3. This gets rid of all the factors in the numerator, which means that we can no longer reduce. Also, it means that if everything on the numerator disappears, we now have a number 1 as a factor on the numerator. As a denominator, we just have x plus 2. So x plus 2 will go here, and this ends up being your answer for this problem. There's nothing to multiply or factor, so that's it for this one. All right, the next problem in our notes looks like this. So repeating the process that we just did, the first thing we want to do is remember that when we divide, we want to keep the first fraction. We want to change the division to multiplication, and then we want to flip the second fraction. So we're going to keep 4x squared minus 25 over 5x squared minus 25x. Then we're going to change the division to a multiplication, and then we're going to flip this. So it's x squared over 2x plus 5. Next, we're going to factor. So now we look at what we have here, and these are binomials. So whenever you have binomials, your options are to ask yourself if there is a GCF and if there's a difference of square. When you have difference of squares, you need to consider if you have something squared minus something squared. If you do, this immediately turns into two binomials where you have x, or actually no, whatever it's here, you have it in this space and this space. So I'll just write it right there. And then whatever is here, you have it in this space and in this space. So you'll see a couple of examples here. The top one, we want to ask ourselves, the numerator, we're going to ask if there's a GCF, and 4 and 25 don't have a GCF. There's no x's on both parts, so there is no GCF for the binomial. And the next question is to ask yourself if there is something squared minus something squared, the difference of squares. So it's a little bit tricky here, but yes, both of these are square numbers. 2 times 2 is 4, 5 times 5 is 25. And then x times x is x squared. So we can say that here, 4x squared is the answer to multiplying 2x times 2x. And 25 is the answer to multiplying 5 times 5. So these are the numbers that we're going to use in our binomial. And 2x is going to go right here, 2x and 2x. And 5 is going to go on the other side, right here, 5 and 5. There will be a plus and a minus in between those. So that will be your numerator. For the denominator, we notice that this binomial does have a GCF. 5 can be divided into, can go into both of these numbers, and then x squared and x, both of these can have an x be removed. So we're going to have 5x as our GCF. And if we divide these by 5x, we end up with x minus 5. Next, we're going to look at this and see if we can factor. So x squared, technically x squared is x times x, so 2 factors right there. And then 2x plus 5 cannot be factored, so we just write it down. Now that we have the factors, technically this is a factor, we will have to simplify. So if we look at this carefully, yes, it's pretty obvious that 2x plus 5 needs to be canceled, but also another one. And in every class period, I had to re-explain that 5x means you're multiplying 5 times x, which means that you have two factors here. You have 5x separately. So this x can be reduced with one of these x's. And then now that we have all those canceled out or reduced, we multiply straight across. If we multiply straight across, we will have 2x minus 5 times x. Usually you see your x or a monomial in the front of the binomial, so I'm going to write it this way. And then denominator, we have 5 times x minus 5. So this is the answer to this problem, but this is the answer in factored form. you need to be open-minded that we can also have it in another form, standard form. So if you multiply this in, you'll have x or 2x squared minus 5x. Over multiplying these two, you get 5x minus 25. This will be the answer in standard form. And that's it. These two problems hopefully can help you understand how to divide.